If you can't evacuate, find a place to hide where you are less likely to be found and lock any doors that you can. And as a last resort, and only if your life is in imminent danger, please fight. Our staff will provide additional direction and assistance on what to do. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask us to have a moment of prayer for the passing of President Carter, after which Commissioner Harris will lead us in prayer. Will we pause for a moment of silence?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day of life, health, and strength. Lord, we thank you for those that are here tonight, those who may be on their way. Lord, we ask you to continue to guide us, keep us on one accord as we go through the minutes, as we go through all the issues that we have to partake of tonight. Lord, we ask you to bless those that may not be here but want to be. Lord, we just thank you and ask for your prayer. Amen.
Amen.
At this time, in your agenda package, you have minutes from December the 4th and a special meeting of December the 12th. If there are no additions or corrections, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call for a public hearing to rezone parcel number 3783-67-3068-00 located at 111 South Macklefield from AR30 rural residential to R20 residential mixed. We usually give 3 minutes to everybody that has requested to come before the board, so I request that you honor that. I'm going to ask that our clerk probably give notice when you get to those 3 minutes. We're going to try to hear from everybody that would like to be heard. Sometimes we are more liberal, but it appears that we might have a number of people in the audience tonight that would like to speak to this issue. At this time, I'm going to call the public hearing to order. Mr. Peters, would you please read the public notice?
Yes, sir. Public notice is hereby given that an evidentiary hearing, this is a legislative hearing, will be held by the Board of Commissioners of Edgecombe County on Monday, January 6, 2025 at 6 o'clock p.m. in the Jonathan Felton Commissioners Room, second floor, County Administrative Building, 201 St. Andrews Street, Tarboro, North Carolina, to consider and act upon Case 24-RZ03, a request to rezone property owned by Sandra Ham located on NC 111 South, Macclesfield, also identified as parcel numbers 3783-6773-06800. The applicant, C.T. Williams Corporation, requests to rezone property from AR30 rural residential to R20 mixed residential district. Copies of the proposed zoning map amendment are available for public inspection during business hours 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the County Planning Office, Room 205, County Administrative Building, 201 St. Andrews Street, Tarboro, North Carolina. Citizens who wish to address the board on this matter may do so at the meeting during the public hearing. Citizens may also submit their comments via email to publiccomments@edgecombeco.com or by mail to Tammy Faison, Clerk to the Board, P.O. Box 10, Tarboro, North Carolina 27886. All written comments received by 5 o'clock p.m. on December 31st will be read at the meeting. Published December 24, 2024 and December 31, 2024 by order of the Board of Commissioners of Edgecombe County. Tammy Faison, Clerk to the Board.
Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to invite Mr. Durbin Spell, our planning director, to come forward and give you an overview of the application before you and some instructions.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
C.T. Williams Corporation is requesting to rezone a parcel of approximately 179 acres from AR30 rural residential to R20 mixed residential district. The AR30 rural residential district is established to protect rural and undeveloped land from premature development at densities that are inconsistent with the county's adopted policy guidance. The R20 mixed residential district has a neighborhood scale or character with individual developments that range along major transportation corridors and within designated areas proximate to municipal areas. The planning board voted unanimously to forward the rezoning request to the Board of County Commissioners with an unfavorable recommendation. The planning board stated the rezoning from AR30 to R20 is inconsistent with Edgecombe County's adopted policy guidance as expressed in the 2014-2034 comprehensive plan, based on that it is not consistent with growth management policy number 5 rural. After the conclusion of a legislative public hearing, the Board of Commissioners shall decide the conventional rezoning application in accordance with the standards in section 2.3.7.h review criteria. The decision shall be one of the following: approval of the application, denial of the application, approval of a revised application, or remand the application to county staff for further consideration. The decision shall be based on the legislative discretion of the Board of Commissioners, taking into consideration the recommendation of the planning board and the standards in section 2.3.7.h review criteria. In making this decision, the Board of Commissioners shall adopt a written statement of reasonableness and consistency with the county's adopted policy guidance in accordance with section 160D-605 of the North Carolina General Statutes.
Any questions? Hearing none at this time, thank you. At this time, do you have a list of people to call? No? Oh, you don't, okay. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask that when you come forward, just please raise your hand and I'll recognize you to come forward. When you come forward, please.
Mr. Chairman, if we could allow the applicant to come first. I believe
Please,
the applicant or
please.
his
Thank you.
representative is here.
Thank you.
To give an overview of his request.
Thank you for that.
Hello, my name is Cecil Williams, Jr., owner, and along with my wife, CT Williams Corporation. It's our desire to put a subdivision. Watch this video and a little bit about it. This is one that we've already done in Nash County. All these houses are interior design, nice entrance, and you'll just see that we will have about 2, maybe 3 entrances into this subdivision. Everything is inside. The builder will build a model home and will sell from the model home, and that's a 20,000 square foot lots. You can see the lots are decently sized, where you got some backyard, and see one person there has a nice fence for retaining the animals, the dogs or whatever, in the subdivision. And this is one of the crossroads in the subdivision. And if you go down this one, we started this one probably March of this year, and houses, and when we build houses, the ditches are already all sodded, all that stuff is sodded up to the back of the houses, and landscaping and stuff is done so that we minimize any runoff. The hydro seeder is used to seed the balance of the lot in the rear, so that we can get a quick stand of grass that can turn into mulch. Everything you can see here has got silt fence around the lots to prohibit and with soil erosion and things of that nature. This is some lots that are, the foundations are being prepared to construct homes, and this was done, I think, in December, but the home's already been, they're complete. And that's Strickland Road. There's it's just a rural road that goes from the Green Pond community over to 97 as a way to get to the Raleigh area. And as we look back, and it's just a stub street, it's a street that goes, it was initially designed to be just a plain stub street, but the soil engineer, he had some issues with soil, so we moved it around and had those lots over there face that road, and see the sod and the plantings there, concrete driveways. It's, in my personal opinion, it's just a top-notch subdivision, something I know I'm proud of. And then it's gonna turn around here and possibly go back, more development will be to that back area that it might show you. Back on, that's one of our bulldozers over there grading, doing some work. And that area all the way back in there is gonna be houses, and that's the model home there. And like I say, it only has, this one has 3 entrances into the subdivision. And we've already got one built that's got 200 houses in it, that on Stony Hill Church Road, and it has 3 entrances too. And it has really no negative impact on traffic. It's just, people can pull up to the road and they can get out, they can leave. And it's not like having a ton of houses and all of them fronting the road and everybody's, you can't see how to get out and all these problems. That solves all the issues of, that's the street over there where we cutting in on the top to get ready to pave. And I'm still in the farming business some, but that's some of hay round bales there on the ground. That's an old house that was there that's been taken away. And I think this is, it's sort of way, I see it as a way of the future. These houses are 250 to 350, 400,000, all stick built on-site homes. And we have 3, we build subdivisions, and there's 3 regional and national builders that follow us to build these homes. And I'm sort of proud of it, and I'm looking forward to working with Edgecombe County to bring something just like that to the property we purchased outside of Michaelsville.
Any questions of Mr. Williams? Hearing no questions, thank you, Mr. Williams.
Yes, so I guess.
We might be some questions for you somewhere down this, okay?
I think the meeting is fine. Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you. Anything else I missed?
No.
Okay. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you come forward and please observe the 3 minutes. And please state your name and address for the public record. Who would like to speak? You, sir, please come forward.
My name is Richard Woodlark. I live at 3546 NC 124W, Michaelsville, North Carolina at 27852. And I know that we're discussing the rezoning of this property. My understanding that R20 would change this property to a mixed residential, which would allow a wide variety of dwellings, units types of around 2 units per acre or more, based on the opening premises and design. I have several concerns. Those concerns consist of taking an opening farmland and wood land and developing it and how it would affect the community, the environment, and wildlife. My concern impacts how would it affect the fire department, the rescues department, school system, and sheriff's department. Also, I have concerns of the water runoff to the swamp lands that adjoins this land, which backs up to our property also. There's all kinds of wildlife that live in this area and travel through this area. There's even federal protected animals such as ducks and eagles and the red-headed woodpecker. I am 71 years old. I've lived here all my life in Edgecombe County. I've remodeled one house and built 3 custom houses in this county. Why did I say in Edgecombe County? Because of the open farmland, the woods to hunt, fish, the ATVs variety and pull out of the driver, I can pull out my driveway without getting stuck in traffic. I understand why Mr. Williams would like to change this rezoning to R20. Of course, it helps his pocket. But I don't understand why anyone living in Edgecombe County would want to allow the development of this land to R20 scale. In the last 7 years, there's been a lot of new development in this county of residential and custom houses. And also substantially increased last year in our property taxes, so I don't really see why there should be a need to allow such a development here in Edgecombe County at this time. I would appreciate your vote of no for the proposal to R20. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Is anybody else to speak? Please come forward. Please come forward, sir, and state your name and address for the public record.
I was going to ask, is this just about the rezoning, or
Yeah.
This is just, this,
we have a?
we have public petition after this, sir. Is there anybody else to speak? Please come forward, ma'am, and state your name and address for the public record.
My name is Rhonda Baumgartner. I live at 6588 NC 42 West in Macclesfield, 27852. I've been here a year, and I purchased the old Carolot kennels and plan on staying here for a long time. A lot of people would look at this development and say, why wouldn't I be for it? Because it definitely would help out my business. 200 houses are gonna bring dogs, but guess what else it's gonna bring? Overcrowding on the roads that are not structurally sound as it is. Have y'all been to Macclesfield or Pine Tops lately? Most of the storefronts are empty. We have a Piggly Wiggly. We got a couple different things. We need to grow these communities back before we expand. If I recall from the last meeting, one of the major items that would allow this to happen is, excuse me, colds are going around, connection to public utilities. That is not what is being proposed here. I don't see how they come before us with a plan. They've done no feasibility study that we've seen. I'm trying to build a pond on my land. You know what I did? I reached out to USDA. I found out if the Army Corps of Engineers needed to get involved because I'm right next to a stream that leads into Old Town Creek. I don't see any of that done here coming before this committee to rezone 178 acres of farmland into a community. Yeah, we saw some night houses here. Not 200 of them. No condos, no townhouses. But what they're asking for, that's acceptable. I hope you all take this into consideration and make the right decision to vote no.
Is there anybody else here to speak? Hearing none, please come forward, sir, and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name's Curtis Jackson. I live at 787 St. Louis Road. This development is going to be basically in my backyard. And I kind of like, when I get up in the mornings, I go out, I got my dogs, I can look at the sunrise, I look at the sunset, and it's beautiful. I hate to go out and look. I just purchased this 6 months ago. And look at a bunch of houses. I have a bunch of traffic going by. I have a grandson that's in the fire department that I've talked to about this development. And he's expressed concerns with being able to get up and down the little roads they're talking about, even with the fire trucks. We have a dump on the other side of Macclesfield that when I go to now, they tell me that Edgecombe County only has one truck to service this dump, and half the time you can't leave what you have, you have to take it to another place. How is this area gonna handle 200 or 300 more houses? That's all I had to ask.
Is there anybody else to speak? Please come forward, state your name and address for the public record.
My name is Marilyn Augustine. I live at 4730 Highway 111 South. And I just wanted to back what everyone else is saying. This will be right down the road from my home. And we purchased 5 acres there because we like to live in the country. We've lived here for almost 30 years. And my concern is, again, for our volunteer fire department, our water. Same thing as she was saying, is there been a feasibility as far as all of this being covered? Traffic, more traffic on our road. There's just a lot of no's in my mind that this is not a good thing for our community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak?
I do have one question. Should I answer any of these questions now, or should I wait for another opportunity?
Please,
in the meeting?
please come forward. Go ahead.
Speak up, please.
Yes, sir.
I can't hear.
Yes, sir.
If
Yes,
you
sir.
would, please.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Speak into it.
Yes, sir. I'm not good at this, but anyway, the roads are designed by our NC State DOT standards so that they're the proper widths. We've got the cul-de-sacs that allow for fire trucks and EMS turnarounds, and the water utility is there. And I don't remember, there's another question that was had a good simple answer, but anyway, we have all, and then everything has to go through DWQ. Once we get the zoning, we can't move any dirt, or will not move any dirt, until we have a construction plan, authorized construction plan that Edgecombe County planning would have to sign. They have to sign that, and that is after all of the other agencies from the septic department and other departments have signed off that they're satisfied that we are meeting the state standards and the local standards for building the streets and the houses before we can proceed to do anything. So we are very mindful of the questions that the people have. If there's any other questions, thank you.
Mr. Evans, depending upon what the board does with this, if the board approve this, that is the beginning of the planning board's process, right? In terms of what the planning board committees would do, right?
Correct. Well, I think it should also be clarified that Mr. Williams, as he mentioned, he currently owns the property. Even if it's not approved, he could develop it within the AR 30 standards. In other words, he could develop it, wouldn't be able to develop it as densely as he could with AR 20. But yes, if the rezoning is approved, then his next step will be, as he just mentioned, he has to submit his development plans to our office once it's reviewed by the many agencies that have to review various parts of that. And then the planning board will have to review and approve that as well.
Is it the intent of the streets to be built, that they could be adopted by the state?
Yes,
That
absolutely.
That is the intent?
Yes, once there's a certain level of houses on there, that is our intent to turn those streets over to the county for maintenance.
Talking about to the state. We
DOT.
I mean,
we-
the state.
yeah, we don't want no
You don't
maintenance.
want that
No, we don't want no
You
maintenance.
don't want that, no. We turn over to the state,
No,
because
we're
the
not
state-
gonna take them, okay?
Yeah, that's right. The state is involved in the design, so they'll be willing to take the roads over once they're built. So it's a pretty, I mean, everybody's looking and got eyes on it, making sure it's done right. And the 20,000 square foot gives us opportunity. We want to build an interior subdivision like we got. And when you have to go to 30,000 square feet, it gets big and it's hard to put the big pieces in. So you end up probably have to end up with some road front lots and stuff, because it's only so many feet from the road edge to the woods edge. So we know we can't develop in the woods So we're trying to get a spot to where we can have houses on both sides. And if we can't get a street in the center and have houses on both sides, then you're forced into just give it up and go and have a roadfront lot. So we don't want to do that. We want to have a nice community where people can walk the streets of this community and meet their neighbors and see their neighbors and talk to their neighbors and have a good, solid atmosphere.
Is there,
Thank
while you might not have spoken, do any questions come to anybody's mind that they would like to ask? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please come forward, station. Okay. Mhm.
I wanted to speak as well. So is this just questions for Mr. Williams at this time?
It's questions, maybe if we can't get them from him, somebody will try to get the answers for you. Go ahead. Please
Okay.
ask him.
I just wanted to
ask the
clarify
question.
a couple of things. It sounds like that, whether this is approved or not, that it sounds like maybe the intention is that you do plan on developing regardless of what happens today. I just want to confirm that. And then number two, I'd also like to confirm, are you saying that if this rezoning does not occur, that you will be putting these houses on the road, if you are indeed planning to still develop?
We're gonna, I guess, if we step back.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that, the reason I'm asking this question is because just recently has Mr. Williams acquired this land. He did not own this land at the last time we had this meeting. And this has just only happened since like December the 17th. I think it ended up on GIS on around December the 20th.
Oh,
So I'm
please,
just understanding the reason for purchasing the property.
Well, I think part of, that's not for our consideration. Our consideration is that if he has control of the land, he has put an application in for this rezoning. It's not for us to determine at this time, okay, those kinds of questions. It's for us to determine whether we're gonna accept his application as presented to this board, okay? Now, those questions in terms of what he's gonna put, that would be decided. What he can put, if we approve this, is what we authorize, okay? And he can put what is authorized under the present zoning as it is now, okay? Those are his options now. But it's not for this board to decide based on the questions that you're asking, okay? That's, the application before us is to rezone it to, what is it, AR 20. That's the application, that's what this board is considering, okay?
Understand.
Please hold, go ahead.
My name is Crystal Hill. I live at 3546 NC 124, west, and my property connects to this property. I own 50 acres that connects to this property.
Mrs. Thorne, you had a question? Yes. You had,
We were just getting her name and address.
Good enough, okay.
I have a question.
Okay, yes, ma'am, hold your question.
Okay, and I would like to speak. Do you want me to do that now, or would you like?
Go ahead,
Mr.
speak,
Williams?
please.
So, what I wanted to say is, I just want to make it clear that I don't want to speak for anybody in this room except for me and my family, of course, but I don't think that this is about not wanting to develop Macclesfield. I think everybody in this room almost can acknowledge that we want Macclesfield to grow. We want to see our little town successful. Do we want it to be Cary? Do we want it to be Raleigh? No, we would have moved to Raleigh. We would have moved to Cary. I used to live in Cary. But we want it done in the right way. I think the lady mentioned earlier that if you go to Macclesfield, we don't have a restaurant anymore. We have one little grocery store, a Red and White. We have houses that are falling apart because no one's living there. Beautiful little houses that could be redone, that a developer could come in and, redo these houses, build Macclesfield up, because that's what we want to be. We want to build Macclesfield up, and we want to support them as the community and the citizens living more in the rural areas, such as myself, and that's not what's happening here. It's almost like putting the cart before the horse, if you per se. But I'm concerned about a lot of things. That was my father that spoke earlier. As there's a ton of wildlife in the area. There's we don't even have a police officer. What are we gonna do with all these people? We don't have a police officer. Pine Tops has a police office. We don't. We have, nothing there really, and we really need to be looking at Macclesfield and how we can grow. And it's been a kind of a whirlwind. I think most of us in this room can say that it was like we didn't know anything. We were going about our lives, and then all of a sudden, in like a matter of weeks, we found out that there's a meeting, and like this big thing is happening. This is big for us. You're right, we're in Little Town Max, so this is big. And in 2 months, we're all gonna make a decision. I've been in marketing, I've been in communications, I've worked with city councils, like, where's the strategic planning? Let's take a step back and think about what do we want for Macclesfield? Who do we wanna be? Do we wanna be Cary? Do we wanna be Raleigh? Or, do we have something else? Let's be unique. It's okay to say no. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to want to be different. And I think that's what everybody in this room is saying. We want to be different. We want to be a little town. We want to see countryside. We want to see, sunrises. We want to see, we don't want to see other houses. Because that's not what I went out there and bought 50 acres for. I used to live in a neighborhood. I intentionally moved my child to the country because I wanted him to be able to ride a four-wheeler without, the house I lived in before was on 111, to be honest with you. And I felt like my kids couldn't go to the front yard because they were gonna get hit by a car, because that road is terrible. That's terrible. Yes, ma'am, thank you. That road is terrible. But, I moved intentionally so that I could live in the country. And I just hope that we can preserve our small little community, and I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Please hold it, Mr. Wade. Hold your, I think the lady here wanted, did you want to speak? Please come forward, ma'am. Did you want to speak?
I already spoke.
Okay,
I had a
please.
question, though.
Hold your question, please, we'll get those questions as soon as everybody speak. Please, okay.
My name is Michelle Lynn. I live at 647 St. Louis. My name is Michelle Lynn. I live at 647 St. Louis Road. I'm going to bounce off what some other people have said. As I'm sure you all know, we are short-staffed. We're short-staffed in our deputies. We're short-staffed in our EMS. This is going to pose a problem. I'm all about growth. But I think we need to grow in certain other areas before we start growing in people. My father purchased this house in 1994. In his end days, he went without meals to make sure that I had this house when he died. It's all I have left of him. Yes, she's crying. I work for Edgecombe County Public Schools. You've already denied a pay increase for me. And then you approved tax increase. Please. I'm losing everything. I have zero desire to stay in this county anymore. Please, I beg you, think about what you would want and what you would want to live around.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
My name is Sandra Farmer. I live on Highway 124 West, just around the curve from this development. I have a lot of questions. If this is rezoned to R20, my understanding is that not only could you have single-family homes, but you could build apartments, you can build duplexes, and I don't know what else could be built there. I really don't mind. The film that he showed is a beautiful community. I would love to have that community. However, if they're owner-occupied, it's a lot different from having apartments or duplexes that are rental property. I have not heard anything about, has an environmental study been done on this land? Can it support these number of houses? No one has answered that question. I asked that question at the planning board meeting, and it was not answered. Who provides electricity? What is the environmental impact on this development? Can you answer that? Can anyone answer that now? My concern is if you approve this as an R20, what prevents the developer from building apartments, selling the land for a trailer park? I mean, what protects me? And also, will the county, can they give us funds to have a policeman in Macclesfield? How do we get a policeman in Macclesfield? Macclesfield only has, we can ask Ralph, 300 and some residents. You know, we don't have big tax base there, so how do we get a policeman to fund the 300 residents that we already have, plus you're going to give us 200 more residents or residences? You know, how can we be protected? I think that was all of my questions, but I would like these questions answered at this meeting because my questions at the planning board were not answered. Thank you.
To answer this young lady's question, if we are zoned R20, there will be, okay, I'm so sorry. To answer this young lady's question, if it's zoned R20, there will be no apartments and no rental, it'll all be owner occupied. And I'm willing to make that a condition of the rezoning request if necessary. As far as the environmental, there will be a.
Is that a request of yours?
It's not a request, I'm just saying
Okay.
that it will all be single family. It's gonna look just like the one that I showed on the video. I don't bait and switch. I've got too much to lose and reputation or whatever to be playing games. But with DWQ and the Army Corps of Engineers will require a endangered species study to be done on the property as well. So the R20, and if I can't get that zoning, and I'll tell you why I put the property under contract, because I'm open book, I don't mind telling anybody. I put the property under contract, and then we were scheduled to come to a planning board meeting, I believe it was planning, and it was the election, and for some reason, the election was using either the building or personnel. Anyway, we had to cancel the planning board meeting, or postpone it. So that threw us behind a little bit, and I had a date to close on my contract with this property, and the people were not very forgiving for us, and so we closed on the property. That's why we're here owning the property. So R20 is residential. If we don't get the zoning and I own the property, then we're gonna still try to put residential houses on the property, but we'll see where we're at after we see what happens here.
I think to the question of, I'm just speaking, sir, okay?
Okay.
To the question of whether they're gonna be, you know, even if he sold a house and it changed hands, that owner could rent it, so he can't control that. That would be out of his control. I think what he says is gonna be a homeowner environment, but once a homeowner bought a house, it's up to that homeowner in terms of what they did with that house after they bought it. Now to the question of police, I don't think the county is gonna fund a police. We do have deputies that patrol all these areas. None of our smaller communities have police, but we do try to authorize the number of deputies that our budget can stand to patrol all of the smaller communities in this county. So that becomes a county responsibility where they don't have local law enforcement officers. One of our only smaller communities would be Pine Tops, I believe. Whitaker's might have, but that's paid for that's hired within their own community with local police started, not necessarily. Other than that, the law enforcement is controlled by the sheriff or the state. Was there any other unanswered questions or statements or questions or comments that anybody would like to make?
Only comment I'd have, and we can ask Mr. Sproul to come up and clarify that, but R20 cannot build apartments in R20 zoning, correct?
That's correct. R20 is not a
Single
permitted
family.
use in the.
It's single.
Single.
a single family, but also, two-family homes are also permitted in the R20 district as well.
And a lot of the questions that are not, will answered by once this process is completed, if in fact to get that, the planning board handles all of those to assure that the requirements for building are met. Our planning inspection department handles that. They are our department that stay in contact to make sure they're built in accordance to what the zoning requirements. That becomes our responsibility in terms of ensuring. A lot of those, they might appear to be unanswered, but the agencies that they go through, those questions will be taken care of. And there are policies in place to make sure that we've got the protected areas, I think our agents, who takes care of that? I don't know, but our protected spaces would not be built on. They would not be built on.
Our question.
Go right ahead, your question.
Water sewer, would that be one of the county's,
Water.
Water is
Water.
available there.
Water.
but not sewer?
But not sewer, no ma'am.
We don't have sewer out there. Mhm. The water, it was water, we have
water.
countywide water. We have it was whether they're gonna be, or, it might be, I don't know whether they're gonna get water and sewer from, whether they're gonna try to do it from Macclesfield, whether they're gonna be on a county water system. Okay, those are questions that would be answered once they,
County water is available.
Is available.
Sewer is not available, so they'll have
Sewer
to
is not available.
be approved septic units.
okay.
Is the quantity available? Right here, we don't have a whole lot of water.
Well, we can buy water. We get water from Tarboro and Rocky Mount. Also, we get water, we do, we get water from Tarboro and Rocky Mount. Go ahead. You, go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Bell, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you can help us just a little bit here, okay? Coming from the planning board, it was a unanimous no.
That's correct.
Okay, and we read the specifics of their decision as to why, but can you break that down a little bit for us so that us can understand why the decision was no?
Yes, so basically, they went, looked at the policies and, planning staff presented, two findings, two policy statements for the planning board to choose in making their decision. And the reason that they voted to recommend denial was that it would not fit the policy statement of the rural growth management policy, I believe number 5, which discussed the rural characteristic of the county. So they felt like the proposal would be in contradiction to that.
To the statement?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Their policy.
Okay. Now, if you'll get us straight on one other thing. Okay, when as it stands now, it is zoned as AR 30.
That's correct.
Okay, and Mr. Williams can, and indeed, more than likely, will proceed to build. If I'd paid that money for it, I'd want to do the same thing, understand that. So, get us straight on the differences in the two zoning ordinances. If you would do that, and I think we know it, but if you would review that, I would certainly appreciate it.
Let me bring my ordinance book up.
But and let me just ask this. I might can make it more simple than you having to go through all of that. I'm that way. Okay, as it stands now, he could build, and he could build homes on a 1 acre lot, correct?
That's correct. So if the rezoning is not approved tonight,
right,
Mr. Williams could still do a major subdivision in the AR 30 district. It would have to be as a conservation subdivision.
Right.
Okay. In which conservation subdivision, there's a requirement, there's a current requirement that there's he will have to provide a minimum of 40% open space with that subdivision.
Okay.
As a conservation subdivision.
And also, the larger lot size, the minimum lot size is bigger, obviously, 30,000 as opposed to 20,000. So that restricts him on how many units he can get on it. But
Right.
he could still build a subdivision, just not as many houses likely on that layout.
You want to, go ahead, comment on, go ahead, make a comment, you want to, come
I
on.
believe that the conservation, subdivision says you go down to 15 if the soils and stuff will back you up.
Well, yes, the conservation does allow some flexibility in allowing for smaller lot sizes, being with, that would go hand in hand with that 40% open space requirement.
Okay. So that there actually could be a smaller lot with the conservation plan than being requested. Okay,
Potentially.
potentially.
And Mr. Bear, one other question, and again, with what Mr. Wiggins has said, and I'm sure what our county attorney may say, I may be asking a question that is a futuristic question, but I've got to ask it. We do know we got county water. We do know we don't have sewer right there now, okay? And we as citizens of that community don't know where Mr. Williams would be fortunate enough, in my mind, to pick up sewer from the town of Macclesfield, or where he's going to put a septic tank in every one of those half-acre lot yards. That, in my opinion, in my mind, that's a pretty substantial question. I mean, I'm no environmentalist. As the guy we had here last time, people saying they want an expert, they want a scientist. I'll be the first to say I'm not an expert and I'm not a scientist either. But when you talk about a septic tank in a half-acre lot and you got home after home after home after home, that just don't sit real well with me. Because I've had enough septic tank issues and drainage issues of my own to stay and talk about it all night, but we won't. But can you, Mr. Wood, can you elate to that a little
Yes,
bit?
sir.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Can you hear me, or do I need to go?
Come on up here,
Yes,
please.
sir. As far as the septic issues go, we can use the county, environmental people if necessary, but we hire a certified soil scientist that comes and the subdivision you saw, every one of those houses has a permit for a 4-bedroom house. Once in a while, we have to go down to a 3. Every one of them has a septic permit to have a septic in the yard with repair area, and we have to expand our lots and do our lots and configure our lots because we have to have septic. In Nash County, we don't have sewer there either. And we don't try to do any real smart things and ingenious things to sewer treatment package plants and nothing like this. It's all straight up. Every house will have a septic tank and a drainage field with a repair area.
Yeah, that has to be permitted by the health
That
department.
has to be permitted by the health department. And I'm sorry, what was one of the other questions?
That was basic.
Oh, and I will say on the other, about the apartments and whatever, the single-family homes, all of these, my subdivisions have a very, very strict homeowner association that prohibit, you can't rent, you can't purchase a property and not be owner occupied. It has to be owner occupied, and
So the homeowner's policy will require that it not be sold to somebody to rent it.
rest, yes. And I mean, that can be shared with the county attorney for his look and approval. And we get a lot of flack sometimes from our homeowners because of the things that are so strict about the kind of fence you can have in your backyard. That was a wood fence you saw there, but the fence has to be site built. You can't go to Lowe's and buy a kit and come out in the subdivision and put up a fence to put your dog in. All this stuff we're talking about trying to put something that I know I'm proud of and I want y'all to be proud of, and maybe one day we might can do another one somewhere.
Is there anybody else to speak? Please, back here, sir, you first, go ahead.
I have 6.7 St. Louis Road. And our biggest issue.
Can you wait to get up here so everybody can hear you?
not a great speaker either.
None of us are.
647 St. Louis Road, Preston Lynn. Our biggest issue is we live on St. Louis Road. And Ms. Pittman and I, we know flooding pretty good. Our hurricanes pretty much flood half of our street. Now, the drainage that's going to be coming off those neighborhoods, where is it going to go? How are we going to be preventing it from coming back on St. Louis Road? That's my biggest thing. Two, I wouldn't make a purchase if I knew I could rezone something to make my money back. So I'm not sure how that works. But my biggest thing is he guaranteeing us that if something happens to our properties due to his subdivision, we'll get our compensation for it? Ms. Pitt had to put her AC unit in her attic to prevent from getting flooded over and over again because of these hurricane storms, anything like that. If we've got added acreage that can't drain well and it comes back in our ditch, it's a done deal for my house, Ms. Pitt's house, Ms. Sue's house, and anybody else that's not standing here. I mean, what are we gonna do about that? That's every hurricane situation we have to worry about. I've had to literally cut out ditch lines across our farmers' paths to cut that water out, to keep us from flooding any further. But he will be the only way, his subdivision will be the only way our water gets to go. So what are we gonna do when that starts backing up? Because it's not gonna go where it needs to go. That's my biggest thing. Do we have a guarantee that he's gonna compensate us for our stuff?
The only thing I can say about that is, with the sod that we use and the way we grade these lots, the drainage is, for our subdivision, is done by a civil engineer using the guidelines and the criteria that civil engineers use to build roads. And we got mechanisms that if retention ponds, when I say a pond, it wouldn't be much bigger than this from here back in the road. There's all kinds of mechanisms that are used by the engineer to keep us from flooding anybody. We don't put but probably 15% impervious on the lot. The rest of it is sod, grass, and such as that. So it's way different than farming and better because the grass helps hold that water back. Whereas if you got a field that's in rows, the water runs off the top of the row into the row middle and down the way it goes. So it's a much better scenario.
Right here, sir. Please, let's hear. Come on, okay. Come on forward, ma'am. I'm sorry, sir, I get to you. Okay.
My name's Jennifer Pittman. I live on St. Louis Road. That address is 405. Mr. Lynn was just referencing my mother who lives at 689 St. Louis Road, Ms. Pitt. Excuse me. And her property has flooded numerous times. So I am very concerned about that. I understand the owner has some possible solutions, but even so, I still have concerns regarding the sod and a potential retainage pond being enough to protect the residents of St. Louis Road. I have lived there my entire life, 52 years. Most of the residents there are long-term residents. To see their home sacrificed for someone else's benefit is quite concerning. Not only the flooding issue, when we're talking about, I don't know the number of septic tanks that are going to be installed, and I understand he can already build there. I guess I'm still not clear on the number of homes that can be built there, even if it's not rezoned. So I would like to know that, the maximum number that could be built there, irregardless. But if it is rezoned, then we're looking at a lot more septic tanks. I myself had a septic tank issue this past year. And I don't know if things have changed for the county or not. A very qualified individual had to come out to my home and assess the situation, who is part-time for Edgecombe County. It's my understanding that he was the only one employed at the time. So it's my concern too that who's going to assess all of this? Does Edgecombe County have the infrastructure to take on these additional residents, whether it be 179, whether it be 300? I don't know that Edgecombe County can. I understand that there are certain functions that will be the responsibility of the state, but there's still going to be certain functions of the county. Are the property tax values that you're going to be receiving from this enough to offset those additional expenses? I don't know that they are. And do you want to risk your current citizens that have been here their entire life? Are we going to pay the price for this? And it sounds like we will if this is approved. So I would really appreciate your consideration and consider these long-term residents. Thank you.
Sure.
My name is Brad Hill. Live at 3546 NC 124 West. My property shares a boundary with this land that's been proposed for rezoning. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you tonight to express my concerns about what this will mean for us. Mr. Williams stated that if he develops under R20, that he will only add about 15% impervious structures to that area. The current Edgecombe stormwater ordinance only requires treatment of stormwater if impervious surfaces exceed 24%. I want to tell you why I think the stormwater is going to be a very critical issue for this area. Like he alluded to, many R20 developments are designed just below that threshold of 24%, bypassing critical controls to protect water quality and mitigate flooding. Currently, this property has less than 0.25% impervious surface coverage. Rezoning could lead to over 200 home sites, significantly increasing runoff. Untreated stormwater from roads, driveways, and rooftops would flow into the nearby creek, carrying pollutants and worsening flood risks downstream, as a lot of residents have told you they're concerned about. The southeastern border of this property lies in a FEMA-designated high-risk flood zone already, directly impacting my farm, which is downstream. Calculations verified by an engineer show the property now discharges about 265 cubic feet of water per second during rainfall. Development would more than double that to 537 cubic feet per second. That's a 102% increase in untreated runoff. This poses serious environmental and flooding risks to landowners, farmers, and wildlife. My second point and concern I wanted to make tonight is that this rezoning sets a dangerous precedent. In 2019, Nash County rezoned a small area to R20 for the Williams Grove development. That was also done by the C.T. Williams Corp. Within 3 years, 400 additional acres were rezoned, growing from 37 homes to nearly 500 approved home sites, irreversibly changing that community. Neighboring counties have since tightened their zoning laws. Johnston County now limits subdivisions to lot sizes of 30,000 square feet, while Wilson and Nash counties now require sewer for R20 developments.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Edgecombe County should learn from their experience and take proactive steps to protect our community. High-density developments like this belongs in towns and cities where existing infrastructure such as sewer and water treatment already exist. I want to take a minute from my remaining time and just ask anybody here that opposes this, just please stand for a moment. In conclusion, I would just urge you to listen to the voices of these Edgecombe County residents and reject this rezoning request. Let's ensure future development aligns with our community's values and preserves its resources. Thank you.
Is there anybody else to speak?
My name is Thomas Tolson. I live at 4765 NC 111 South, Macclesfield, about a half a mile from where this is going to be. So since you are answering questions tonight, I have a question, Mr. Williams. Do you have a subdivision like this half a mile from your house?
I have
Please, hold your comment, please, sir. We're not in-
That's just,
We're not in the adversarial role here. Okay, we'll let him answer the question.
Okay.
Address your questions here, please.
thank you.
Okay.
Agriculture is my life. I grew up farming. We still farm some, work in agriculture. That's what puts food on my table. Not houses, not anything like that. So to see all this farmland right beside our house, right in our neighborhood, in our community, go to houses really upsets me. Another thing that's been mentioned several times is grocery stores. We've got the Red and White and the Piggly Wiggly and Pine Tops. Where is all the food gonna come from to have all of these extra families and everything come in? You know, we're gonna have a Harris Teeter built in downtown Macclesfield? I highly doubt it. And one final thing, I live on 111. Somebody mentioned earlier how busy 111 highway is. I have 2 small kids. Several of my buddies in here have small kids. It is a constant battle worrying about them running out in the road. I mean, it's like I-95 in front of my house. That is probably one of the biggest concerns I have. You know, we all want our kids to go outside and play and all that. Well, we worry about the extra traffic, whether the houses are facing the road, whether they're inside a subdivision of R20 or R30 or whatever. 100 houses, 300 houses, it doesn't matter. That's still at least 100 to 300 more vehicles that will be driving up and down the road half a mile or less from my house and everybody else's house in here. Thank you.
Any more comments? You get the last comment, sir.
My first comment is the gentleman that was talking about my subdivisions I did in Nash County. I don't know where I'd like to know more about his calculations about the flooding that would come from a subdivision.
That's not before us.
But that's not before us.
That's not
Anybody.
before, okay.
But I can say this much, Bailey's growing. The town of Bailey has just got some new businesses that's coming into town, and Macclesfield, this is a small piece in the puzzle to get Macclesfield to be growing. That some of the houses that they're talking about, somebody, once they see a little something going on, will come in and buy those properties and refurbish them and flip them. But anyway, any other questions?
Hearing no more, the public hearing is adjourned. At this time, the board needs to reach a decision whether it's going to approve the request or not, based on what I've heard and just my knowledge of the county and being around him. I believe that the commissioners should conclude that this application presented is reasonable and is to the public interest for the following reason. It increases housing options to meet the very needs of the diverse population. We are on the verge of growth, economic, and I think the picture that we have to look at is a total county one. My motion is to approve. Do I get a second? Is there a second from a board? Hearing no second, my motion dies. Is there any other action from the board?
Before they leave, I do just want to make sure that that young lady understands how much I appreciate her being an Edgecombe County school teacher, but I don't want her to leave, or any of these folks to leave, thinking that we denied her an increase. That's something they would have to take up with the school board, not this board. I did not want anyone to leave with that opinion. I believe you should be paid at the highest that they could pay, because you are working with our young people. So I did not want you to leave with the wrong opinion that we had denied you.
Is there another motion from the board?
Motion to deny.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by...
Mr. Chairman, I need to clarify that a reason needs to be stated.
Right, what is
as
your
to
reason?
why-
The reason it does. Who made the motion?
I made the motion. Because I've been sent down by the planning board that they don't believe that this particular project is in the realm of what AR 20 is, or AR 30 already is now. He's purchased the property, we know he can build on it regardless. But according to the planning board, and I agree with him, it just don't fit the bill for this area and this time and this project.
I believe that our board has a greater responsibility, and that is to look at the potential growth of this community, the housing needs of this community, and there are great housing needs for this community. Nobody wants it in their backyard. Nobody. And I heard the reasons of a lot of the people from there. We cannot continue to keep communities as they are with unanswered questions. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and all of those questions would be answered if we approved this. And it is greatly needed for our county. It is greatly needed. To not approve this, I believe that we're doing ourselves and the people that we would hope to recruit to this community with the expected growth, we are doing ourselves harm. But it is the will of this board. All in favor of the motion as presented, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion ties, motion fails. It is not approved. Okay. And with the reason, what did we miss? The reason.
It was a 3-3.
The
Yeah,
3-3. 3-3, motion fails.
So it has
Is
to
that
come
right?
back, doesn't it?
Well,
What is that? Is
Can't
that
pass
correct?
it with a tie. Or deny.
Go ahead, tell me, please.
I've got to figure that out.
Tell him to move the
Okay.
mic to you.
Give me a minute, Mr. Chairman.
Gotta wait for my attorney here, okay. Hold it, I spoke too quick. I need a legal opinion here, okay. It was a tie vote. No, it was not, no. The vote was 3-3, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Please hold. This is board action now, okay.
And while Mr. Peters is reviewing that, I want to clarify for the record what the motion was, where there's a split vote.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Yes, sure. I want to clarify what the motion was that was just taken and voted upon.
The motion,
And so the motion was to deny the application because it's not consistent with the county's adopted policy guidance, in particular, the growth management policy number 5 rule, which is the same reason that the planning board stated. That clarifies your motion. Okay, just, we have to have that very clear in the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, to pass, the motion require a simple majority, so absent a simple majority. So, to be approved requires a simple majority. So do we need a majority of votes to approve? Perhaps we could phrase the motion in a different way.
what would that be, sir?
What was your motion, Mr. Rogers?
Well, the motion is to deny AR.
To support the planning board's request. He's supporting the planning board's recommendation.
There you go.
It fails without a majority, so.
Yeah, 3 and 3. Right.
But that's not a majority.
Just clarification for them. They're saying the motion fails without a majority, not that the decision fails without a majority.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
So we have to wait until we have enough members to vote.
No,
Can I make a motion to substitute that if this fails?
give me 1 minute.
Okay.
If you don't mind. I want to get this right so we don't have to do this again.
We want you to.
That don't mean you don't have to do it again.
Could we use option 4?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Not right now, ma'am. This is board action right now.
it's my opinion, Mr. Chairman, without a majority to approve the rezoning, then the rezoning is not approved and therefore is denied.
Rezoning is, based on the opinion, the rezoning is denied. Okay. Rezoning is denied. Next on the agenda is public petition. Moving on.
Rezoning is denied.
The motion is denied.
Well, the motion's not denied, but the
The
rezoning.
rezoning is not approved. The planning board's recommendation is approved.
Well,
We did not rezone the property.
thank you.
That's what we need to know. Thanks, Dave. Yay!
I assume it would have taken myself on reverse. I'm one of the, because I think you were too. I would assume it would have taken. Is Mr. Williams, Mr. Daltrey, to cut it down. I support it. I was really curious. I don't know. First time home buyers, that's why I'm thinking, if you put a house right there, that's what I want. I won't have a conversation.
I understand. He's going through something.
They will get into a conversation instantaneous. Leon's going to fight for year after year after year, trying to save.
Do anybody need a break? Moving on to public petitions. At this time, we have public petition. If there's anybody here to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the public record, please. Please come forward, sir.
Chairman Wiggins, you almost wore me out.
That's hard to do. You got patience. You got another year.
I hope I'm above ground for that year.
Go right ahead.
My name is James Harper. I live at 1101 Panola Street in Tarboro. County Commissioners, County Manager Evans, and Chairman Wiggins. On October 7th, 2024, I asked how many commissioners had visited the animal shelter. Only one commissioner raised his hand, so I'll ask again tonight. How many commissioners, including the county manager and county attorney, have visited the animal shelter in the last 6 months?
I have. I add my name to the list.
Great. Chairman Wiggins, you get a monthly travel allowance of $450 or $5,400 a year. Other commissioners get $385 a month or $4,600 a year travel allowance, and County Manager Evans, you get $5,500 a month travel allowance or $6,600 a year. This does not include your salaries. In my opinion, your travel allowance is outrageous, but certainly enough to find your way to the shelter. At 50 cents a mile travel expense, the chairman would have to drive 900 miles a month to earn $450. On October 7th, I asked the county attorney to enforce the laws for the care of animal shelter, the shelter animals. Mr. Peters did call me and asked me for the law he could enforce it. Not being an attorney, I don't have that access. I told him what a lieutenant with the sheriff's department told me. Lawyers rarely search their law books. They use online searches, so I'm asking Mr. Peters to do an online search and meet with me at his convenience to review the results. On one of my last visits to the shelter, a woman officer told me she walks the dogs at 6 a.m. every day. I doubt she or anyone else walks those dogs. I don't know if any of you have pets, but just imagine your loved ones, your four-legged loved ones, being locked up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A solution I'd have would be to have the county jail trustees walk and train them so that maybe they would be more adoptable. In other communities, they do this. They pick up trash, they do other things, and trustees can do that. Being a commissioner is a privilege as well as an honor. In Edgecombe County, it pays very well, much more than the county I grew up in Virginia. The monthly cost per individual in the county is health insurance is $1,025 or $12,300 a year. I'm not picking on you, Chairman Wiggins,
That's
but
all
I'm
right.
just using one person.
That's all right, I'm fine.
Chairman Wiggins, your salary is $11,538 a year, plus $5,400 a year travel, plus health insurance for the county expense of $29,238.
Please correct that, please, sir. I'm on state health insurance, okay?
I'm just,
I want,
whatever,
but I want the public to know that, okay? Go right ahead.
whether you accept it or not, it's offered to you.
I would agree with that.
That was just what was sent to me when I FOIA'd it.
Okay.
And I can only read what,
But I don't want,
I don't know whether it's one or two
I don't want the public to leave here with the wrong information, though. Okay.
45 seconds remaining.
so I'll talk fast then.
You get more than that, a little more, because I've been talking with you. Go ahead.
I'm just about done.
I'm gonna give you some more seconds, okay?
Commissioners get a salary of $9,546 plus travel expense of $4,620 a year, plus health insurance of $12,300 for a county expense of $26,466. Not to leave out the county manager at $156,982 plus $6,600 travel for a package of $163,582. The county attorney makes $148,116, but didn't say whether he got insurance or not. Since there are no newspapers in the county, I doubt many residents realize how well everybody is paid. And just one comment, I think you were correct on the housing thing. Sometimes when a builder, in my experience, when they get turned down for certain things, they put something in there that you really don't want, and that might happen. So I don't know. That was just a thought, just listening to everybody's comments. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Just one comment in terms of,
Sure.
Mr. Peters serves as attorney for the board, so Mr. Peters will not necessarily be reporting back to you his findings. So if you want to talk to Mr. Peters, you can go to his office, but he will not be searching for you, okay? So,
When he asked me for the.
okay, well, but I'm just telling you, he serves as an attorney for the board, as attorney for the board. Okay, so I'm just letting you, just cleaning it up for him, okay? And just for the public, you know, this county does offer health insurance for board members. I couldn't tell you how many board members. I can tell you that I'm a retired state employee. I get state health insurance from the state, and I think we've
I'm
got.
a state health employee and I pay my insurance
Okay, so
every month.
so I couldn't tell you who's on it, but we are eligible for it. Okay, just so that for clarification and for the public records. Is there anybody else to come to speak at public petitions? Hearing none, we'll move on to budget amendments, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet, there are 7 budget amendments that require your approval. Also want to note that an additional one was added, and you should have a copy at your seat. It's approved by me, but it's included in here for your information. That is Budget Amendment 8.1, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on any of these.
So the request is to approve budget, how many?
Budget amendments 1 through 7.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the budget amendments are approved.
Yes, budget amendments 1 through 7. No, just 1 through 7.
I just wanted to comment.
Go ahead, go.
After it was approved to comment, because I don't see it in our agenda packet, but we have another $60,000 increase in that temporary salaries, contract services for our solid waste department. So this is $120,000 over the last 60 days, changing that. All we need to do is just increase the pay for a driver and hire a driver.
Yes, sir, so noted.
Moving on. Consideration of B, Ms. Evans, go ahead.
This is regarding lease agreements that have come before you before. Attached are updated lease agreements for Stryker, Axon, and CopyPro. The changes in these agreements were necessary to reflect updated terms provided by the vendors, which are likely to account for adjustments in pay schedules and other factors such as market conditions. These updates ensure the board is reviewing the most accurate and up-to-date figures. The revised agreements also align with documentation submitted to the Local Government Commission. You'll recall at last month's meeting, we brought these before you for your approval, subject to ultimate approval by the Local Government Commission. The changes are outlined here in the memo. We are scheduled to sit before the LGC tomorrow for their approval on these lease agreements. So I recommend that you approve these revised lease agreements.
Ms. Evans, tell us what do we get from each one of these? on
Sure, so.
The Stryker.
Stryker is for, it's in the EMS, cardiac monitors in our, for EMS.
Okay.
Axon is for both body cameras used in the sheriff's office as well as in-car cameras in the sheriff's office. And of course, CopyPro is the lease contract for all of our copy machines across the county.
Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Questions?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
You said EMS cardiac what?
Monitors. It's the big bag. If they come in your house, they bring it in, they can connect it and check your heart rate and does a whole lot of things. They're
How many of those we have? How much?
13.
And we pay $131,000?
They're very expensive, yes,
Oh, my
ma'am.
God. Okay.
They're life-saving equipment, but they're very expensive.
I'm gonna need y'all to pay your bill that month. I need it.
Would you like
Oh,
to
did
know
I-
any more about the devices? I can have Antoine to come up and tell you more about what they do.
That's what saved my life.
Just don't need them.
Mr. Price don't make those through the Amazon.
Did I carry the motion?
Yes.
Did I carry it? Okay. Next.
Item C is regarding farmland leases. Excuse me, on behalf of the county, Ms. Tanya Heath, our Corporate Extension Director, facilitated the bid of county-owned parcels for 3-year farm leases. They were bid in 2 groups. Group 1 at Kingsborough Business Park, it includes 196.5 acres. Group 2 at the landfill, which included 46.29 acres. Based on the bids received, we recommend approval of farm leases. You'll see both groups, the high bid was to Pack House LLC. The bid was for both $192.60 per acre. I recommend that you approve the leases as presented.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
Explain to me what that means. What is farm leases?
So we have a number of properties or these parcels that we have rented out for farmers. They rent it from us and they farm those. We've been doing this for several years. I will note, I'm glad you asked the question because I forgot to mention, originally when we started doing this, we did those 1-year leases. Then we decided to do them 2-year leases because a farmer comes in, they get set up. And then this time we're actually recommending that they be 3-year leases. So they come in, they can farm it, however they choose within those 3 as long as they pay those lease payments.
So, excuse me, Mr. Evans, this is a 3-year lease, right?
This is a 3-year lease, yes, sir.
Motion?
Yes.
I think there was.
Yeah, it was.
We did.
I second it.
Question. Okay. All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I got a question before we move on.
Go ahead.
Is leases paid monthly, yearly, or?
Yearly.
They're paid yearly?
Yes, sir.
I assume they have to pay it the first year before they farm it.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
At this default, we just rebid them.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, next.
Item D is regarding changes to our personnel policy. We discovered that in Article 3, Section 3 of the county's personnel policy, a reference to a following section is incorrect. The section currently references Article 13, Section 5, when it should reference Article 11, Section 5. In considering bringing this to you to correct this error, I realize that our policy needs a provision that will allow me to make technical corrections. Therefore, as part of the proposed amendment to the policy, I also recommend that you approve the addition of Article 1, Section 13, titled Authority for Technical Corrections. The amendments are shown on the attached. Changes and additions are in red. I will point out, you'll see there on the sheet just behind that memo, the section, Article 1, Section 13 that I'm adding. It basically limits only to correcting typographical, grammatical, or formatting errors, updating references to statutes, regulations, or organizational titles that may change, or clarifying language to ensure accurate interpretation without changing the meaning or intent. It also says that if I make such technical corrections, that I will report to you within 60 days of implementing or making those changes. Recommend to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Next.
Item E, the IRS has increased their recommended mileage reimbursement rate from 67 cents to 70 cents. I recommend that you approve the new mileage rate of 70 cents per mile.
Motion,
So moved.
second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Next.
The North Carolina General Assembly enacted State Law 2024-26, which requires public agencies to adopt a policy that prohibits the viewing or saving of pornography on county networks and devices. Presented for your consideration is such a policy that complies with this new statute. I recommend that you approve the policy as presented.
Motion,
Second.
questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Go ahead.
Items G and H are regarding the actions that you took at last month's meeting regarding the Brightleaf Solar Special Use Permit application and Swift Creek Solar. Mr. Peters is going to give you an update on where we are with those.
Yes, sir. The update is we're still preparing those, still fine-tuning those orders, and plan to present those for your consideration at the February meeting.
Next.
Item J is regarding our updated 2025 budget policy.
Sorry. Do we need to table that? Or it's just because we haven't been presented, we don't have to do anything? Okay.
The next item is regarding your budget policy. You'll recall that we discussed this at your last meeting. There's a request from you that we maintain language that any salary or budget changes exceeding $25,000 would still require board approval. I will point to you on the second page of the budget transfer policy, you'll see that there's a table near the bottom of that page. That's the easiest place to look to see who has authority to do what. Just to point out if there are fund changes, and you know our accounting is fund accounting, so we have Fund 10, which is our general fund, that's our main fund. Fund 12 is for the health department, 19 is DSS. Fund 60 is for solid waste, 66 is water and sewer, and then we have a few other funds. So any changes to the total amount of the budget for each of those funds will require your approval. For example, in Fund 10, if we get a $20,000 grant to come in, you have to approve that because that changes the total amount of that fund. Also, if there is an ordinance line transfer, and you'll recall if you remember our budget ordinance, there are lines. In fact, I'm going to ask our folks in IT to pull that up because I think there was a little bit of confusion about that. This is the original budget, or this is our budget ordinance for this current for FY 23-24. If you'll scroll down to the next page. And go to page 3. Those are your revenue funds. So you'll see there, that the ordinance is broken up into ordinance line items. And so whereas the second part says if there is a transfer between any of those ordinance lines, then it's requiring approval from you if it's greater than 25,000. If it's less than 25,000, it can be approved by me. So I think there was a little bit of confusion last month between individual budget lines that you typically see on a budget amendment and these ordinance lines. Most of these ordinance lines will align with a particular budget. For example, if you see the county manager ordinance line, that matches my budget. But not all of these necessarily fit each of those individual departments. So again, any ordinance line transfers, if it's greater than 25,000, requires your approval. As you discussed last time, any salary and benefit changes, transfers within a department that are greater than 25 require your approval. Less than 25,000 can be approved by me. And then intradepartmental non-salary adjustments, so changes within a department, transfers that do not exceed $10,000 can be approved by Ms. Barfield. Transfers up to the ordinance line excluding salary and benefits can be approved by me. So that's the recommendation for our budget amendment policy. I recommend that you approve.
Motion? Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Next.
Item J, North Carolina General Statutes allows you to award a retiring officer his or her service weapon. It specifically states that you may do so at a price determined by you as the governing body. Sheriff Atkinson has requested that consideration be given for retiring Corporal John Owens. To show the county's appreciation for his exemplary service and to provide a memento to that service, I recommend that you approve the transfer of his service weapon at a price of $1 upon the retirement of Corporal John Owens.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Now, if we give them the weapon for the dollar, how does the replacement of those weapons get done? I mean,
The
if you hire
sheriff-
somebody else, he already got my gun to give him?
Well, the sheriff has to manage that as a part of his budget and his equipment purchase. Yes, ma'am. But you're right, essentially that's a gun that goes out of active service and has to be replaced. Yes, ma'am.
And some new one comes into
A
it.
new one
Okay,
comes in,
okay.
that's right.
All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Next.
Item K is regarding fee changes in the health department. You'll see there's a recommended change of the IVP vaccine, which is the polio vaccine. The recommendation is to, the current fee is $27, the proposed fee is $66. Also, you'll see in your agenda packet a number of changes in dental fees. You'll see what the current fee is and what the proposed fee is. As always, our staff, they review our fee schedule. They look at the cost of providing that service or that vaccine or what have you. And then they also look at what surrounding counties are charging for that. This did go before our Human Services Board, and they unanimously approved recommending these fee changes.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, they are approved. Next.
Next is regarding bad debt write-off for the health department. As you know, they have a policy that states that a patient's account will be handled as bad debt when there's been no activity on the account for more than 6 months. Does not mean that there will be no further efforts to collect. In fact, if there's any new activity on the account, for example, the patient presents at the health department for services, then the account is reactivated. This action is an accounting method, whereas the written off debt no longer shows on our books as a receivable. You'll see that the amount that they're recommending to be written off is $764.62. As a comparison, the previous period, the debt the bad debt write-off was $1,990.35. This also went before our Human Services Board at their last meeting, and they recommended to approve that as well.
Motion.
So moved. Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Appointments.
You have for the Board of Adjustments, you have Ms. Eleanor Battle Sharp and Ms. Maria Alfazel. They are up for reappointment and eligible for reappointment and have indicated they are willing to serve, so recommend those.
Is motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. They are approved. We've got a couple of vacancies there. Ask the commissioners to bring in somebody for consideration. Go ahead. Human Relations Commission?
Yes, sir. We have 7 seats that are available on the Human Relations Commission. Just wanted to open up that if you have any recommendations. If not, you may want to, check to see if you know anyone who may be interested. We certainly would love to have some additional appointments to that.
If you could think about it next month, please bring in somebody that you
I
might.
left 2 names for the best.
And also look at those vacancies that the commissioners might have on the Board of Adjustments.
All right. Could you email me what the Board of Adjustments does?
I can, yes,
I
ma'am.
had somebody in mind, but they wanted to know.
Alpha list and releases for review and approval. Anything for the board's attention here?
No, sir. Happy to answer any questions that you
Motion
might
to
have.
approve?
So moved.
Second? Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Contracts that need to be brought to the board's attention, Mr. Evans?
You'll see you have 2 contracts there. One of those, not only does need contract approval, but it needs approval for sole source. This is the vendor that does our current system for key fob access, and so therefore we need to stick with that same system. So recommend that you approve those 2 contracts.
Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved. Moving on to department.
Can I just
Go ahead.
comment after that?
Go ahead.
I don't think our contract for the lawn maintenance has changed. I think the language is probably the same, it's just the number and the person has changed. Can we really work to enforce that? I mean, there's been times when it's definitely not cut on the schedule that it needs to be cut on.
Which is one of the reasons why we went back out to bid for that.
And so I think that's kind of universal across a lot of the things that I hear is, can we kind of enforce the rules that we've put into place on these, on these contracts, but especially on that one. I mean, that's a simple thing to make our buildings look so much better.
Yes, sir.
Moving on.
So under department reports, as you know, that we are currently under a moratorium for any new applications for solar farms, to give you all the opportunity to take another look at our ordinances as it relates to solar energy systems and decide whether or not you want to make any changes. We had laid out a timeline for you of things that we would do within this 9-month period to explore that and consider possibly bringing recommended changes to you. So tonight, what I've asked Mr. Spell, our planning director, to do is to review for you our current ordinance as it sits now. He's going to talk some about where we started and when we originally adopted the ordinance, changes we've made, and where we are now. Following his presentation to you, and if you have any questions, I will then ask if you would call for a public hearing to be held at the February 3rd meeting, to then invite citizens to come, and if they have recommendations for changes, they'll have the opportunity to make that known. So, Mr. Spell.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna go over briefly the history of the language in our UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, that address solar energy conversion systems here in Edgecombe County. So this ordinance language was originally adopted back in December 2014, in which y'all have that original ordinance that addresses solar energy conversion systems. Then a few months later, in March of 2015, an amendment to that ordinance was adopted that added vegetative buffers and bonding requirements. In December of 2017, an amendment was adopted that added requirements for developers to obtain stormwater permit approval prior to the submittal of a special use permit application for a solar energy conversion system. In July 2019, an amendment was adopted that enhanced buffer and screening requirements, in which it added green slatted fencing within 300 feet of residences, as well as quarterly inspection of solar energy systems to ensure that the buffers are kept up. In May of 2022, clarification for definitions of level 1, 2, and 3 solar energy conversion systems was added to our current ordinance, in which you have that in front of you today, in which you look at page 557. So in the words defined section, I highlighted set level 2, level 3, since we have a moratorium on those levels, and I highlighted the definitions for those two solar energy conversion systems. Then if you turn on the next page, you'll see our principal use table, in which you will see the zoning districts that level 2, level 3 solar energy conversion systems are permitted either as special use or permitted outright.
I don't believe they have.
We don't have
in
that
their
page.
packet.
Okay.
But we can be sure, we'll be sure to send you a copy of the current ordinance language.
Yeah, and then, of course, the current ordinance language would be our section 4.3.97 that goes over the purpose and other requirements for solar energy conversion systems.
I notice in here we've got the down zoning bill.
Yes, sir. He's gonna mention that.
He's gonna, go ahead, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so back in December, Senate Bill 382 passed the North Carolina legislature, which is also known as the down zoning bill. The intent of this bill is to prevent local governments from adopting zoning text or map amendments that lower development potential without first obtaining the consent of all affected property owners. And just talked to our consultant, Mr. Chad Meadows, recently, and he has expressed concerns of how this could affect our...
What we propose to do? Go ahead, excuse me.
It could, yes, sir.
Yeah, it could. So staff, well, one thing staff is going to do is review, because this bill is retroactive to June of last year. Mm-hmm. So staff is going to do a look at the amendments that was approved back in July, just to ensure that it meets the state law. And we'll consult with Mr. Meadows and Mr. Peters as well to assure that. And then in a week or so, well, later on this month, we will consult with Mr. Meadows, with County Manager and Mr. Peters also, to look at how this could affect our ability in the future, affect us in pursuing text amendments, especially as we look at amending our solar energy system ordinance and other amendments also.
Go ahead.
I don't understand that. So we're just not allowed to amend our UDO?
No. It's, and, and this is new, and we're still, trying to learn the in and outs of it, and the school of government is going to have a webinar later on this week, talking to local governments about this. So, but basically, and from what I understand is, to give you an example, let's say, this is just an example, if the board were to, in our amendments of the solar energy system, wanted to not allow solar energy systems in AR 30 district. As was described by Mr. Meadows, that local governments, which will be Edgecombe County, will have to get the consent of all property owners in the AR 30 district to make that amendment.
So you'd have to have a ballot vote?
No, we have to get physical.
Like individual consent.
Individual consent.
As it comes to the board.
Because it will eliminate that provision from the AR 30 district. Therefore, it'd be considered as a down zoning.
It really gave the landowners control over what and how we could restrict the use of their land further. That's really what I see this bill did. Okay. In other words, it would have to be very clear. Our attorney would really kind of have to look at it and see if it's meeting the requirements of the statute, even before we did what we are proposing. Anything that we're proposing now, in terms of changes, certainly could, is the way I look at what's here, could be stricter than what we've already got, okay?
Recommendation would be that we have a pretty comprehensive discussion about our current UDO at the annual retreat so that we can go ahead and address a lot of these things. I think we're presented a UDO that's 500 pages? And we kind of have to blindly say yes and trust that we are trusting the people. I think we probably need a comprehensive deep dive into what we have adopted as county policy, if this is the language that we're going to have to go forward from.
Well, it's evolving in terms of, we really got to, when we make changes, we've got to state, before that, we could just go ahead and make a change. When we make a change now, you've got to state a reasonable reason as to why we're making those changes.
But then you still have to get consent, right?
On the solar, in the solar only.
And that's just one example. There's other.
That's only in solar, right?
No, if you decrease density or decrease use in a district, there is some opposition to this from other local governments.
But right now it is. It's the statute. It's really restricting the ability of local governments to do this rezoning.
Beyond this, I think it's still just probably a valuable practice for us to, as we talk about growth and everything in the county. I think many people in the room that are in this every day don't even know that we have a land study out there about where we need things to go, what our plan is. So it might be time to revisit what that plan is.
I would agree. In terms of,
I mean, the south side of the county's completely changed from that time that study was done.
But the UDO gives the board the authority to make those. We can make those changes, and when we make those changes, it automatically changes the ordinance.
That's right.
If we had made the change tonight, that would have been a change for R30, wouldn't it? That would have been.
That would have increased
Right,
density.
that would have increased, changed that R30, the way we rezone, the uses in R30.
That's not down.
That would have changed.
That's upzoning.
Well, and actually, it could be seen as downzoning, because if that change from AR, as was described by Mr. Meadows, going from the AR 30 to the R20 district, in AR 30, single wide manufactured homes are permitted. But if you go to R20 district, that district does not permit for single wide manufactured home.
Which
And
it
thus
make,
that could be seen
which it
as-
makes it stricter, which it restricts single wide, okay.
So that could trigger this.
That could trigger this, okay.
So it's
Well,
complicated.
if it's a government, if that zoning was initiated by the local government.
Right, but this had the permission of the landowner, right, okay, I agree, okay, I see where we are now, okay. If it's government initiated, it's saying that we cannot initiate, okay. Anything else?
You have any questions?
Any
for Mr.
questions?
Spell?
Any more questions, Mr. Spell?
I just want to thank him. I feel like we haven't really heard very much from planning directors, and maybe every now and then for a couple of meetings, but I feel like you've been really, really involved and really aware, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for us. I know you started this role recently, but every time I've asked you a question, you've had an answer. So I appreciate your willingness to jump in and get this done.
We might not know whether it's right or wrong, but you the expert, okay?
It sounds right.
Okay.
I appreciate Commissioner Thorne. Thank you. Thank all y'all.
The action we do ask you to take is to call for a public hearing to be held at your February 3rd meeting to get public comment ideas on potential changes to our solar ordinance, solar system ordinance.
Your motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is called, okay.
Also, under department reports, you have our community paramedic program report, which is under our opioid settlement funds. You also have your monthly water and sewer update. I'd like to call Ms. Barfield up to give you an overview of her monthly financial summary.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Since I managed to skip last month, I decided to do a little bit more detail, so bear with me. I think it's all worthy and worth noting. So in terms of revenues, our ad valorem tax collections are currently hovering around just over 45% of the budget, reflecting the typical seasonal pattern that we see in collections during this first part of the fiscal year, with payments being due by January 5th. In terms of sales tax, collections represent approximately 26% of the budget. This is reflecting now July through September sales within the county, which are distributed to the county in October through December. While early collections did appear a little lower than last year, the county did budget conservatively, anticipating potential fluctuations. Sales tax revenue is structured through several articles, and we're closely monitoring Article 42, which helps fund the school capital needs and their debt service. Also, we're closely watching Article 46, which is a local option sales tax that we currently use toward our debt service, as these numbers are trending below projections. However, the good news, as you can see, I think on the next page after my report, that it does appear that October sales were strong based on the advance notice we received, so there's much hope that this situation will turn around and we'll see these articles projecting or trending a lot higher. In terms of other revenues, you may notice that it's at 97%. This reflects the inclusion of the 5.5 installment financing contract we received, which has primarily been transferred to major capital projects. So while the receipt of these funds does boost that category's collection rate, much of the funding has already been transferred to support initiatives like the animal shelter. For health and DSS, I thought I'd touch on them. Revenues collected so far is about 59% of their expenditures for the health department. DSS funds revenues collected represent about 46% of their year-to-date spending. So the reimbursement rates are a little higher than expected. We expect them to level out as the year goes on, as required baseline spending levels rise, and as the revenue sources with higher reimbursement rates are depleted. We have every indication now that the county's original budget is shared for these departments by the time the year end should end around about those rates, with the county putting in about 47% for the health department expenditures and approximately 34%. Now, these are just estimates at budget time. So the percent that we've collected so far does exceed that, but again, at the beginning of the year, we typically are tapping into capped sources that have higher reimbursement rates that'll be depleted soon, and then it'll start reflected in the county share. In terms of expenditures, general government standing at 42% and human services at 39% are on track for December because spending patterns often vary throughout the year. Some expenditures occur later in the fiscal year, and the timing of some of these activities will affect what you see in these reports. Education and public safety remain the largest expenditures to date. And then moving on to our proprietary funds, water and sewer is looking good with revenues that are exceeding expenditures. However, solid waste is one that we're watching as the revenues are lagging behind the expenditures. However, there are some posting for December revenues that were not ready at the time that this report was required to be submitted that could change those numbers slightly, but we'll be looking at solid waste and following that closely. And that's all I have, unless you have a question.
Any questions?
Tell me about cultural and recreational. What would go in those?
Those are the Arts Council and things that we support, third parties that we support.
Our
Parks and Recreation?
The recreation grant that we give out.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on, Ms. Evans.
Under manager's report, item A, you'll recall with the offer to purchase that we received from Mr. and Ms. Heichel for 3003 North Main Street, our former DSS and Health Department campus. They asked that a contingency be put in that offer that they get the zoning approved for that. They've gone through the planning board process with the town of Tarboro. The planning board majority voted to recommend the approval of the special use permit. It's still yet to go to the town council, I believe sometime this month. You'll see there's correspondence there in the packet. They reached out and said that even if the special use permit is not approved to change the zoning of that, that they can still develop it in the current zoning, and therefore they'd like to proceed with closing on the property. So Mr. Peters will be working with their attorney to prepare that closing. Also, he's going to let you know about something that he received on another offer that we discussed at the last meeting.
Go ahead, Mr. Peters.
Yes, sir. Well, if you remember from the December meeting, there was a supplemental offer, or second offer from made to Mr. Evans and then by Richard Anderson, who appeared at the meeting. He, through his attorney, has since formally withdrawn that offer. So at this time, that offer is no longer valid.
Does the board need to take an action here?
No, sir.
What's the expected closing time on?
I haven't spoken to their attorney yet, so I hate to speculate, but usually, within 30 days.
So by them stating this, with removing the condition of a special use permit, even if they go before the town, because the town at their next board meeting is going to ask for public comments, so then that would be the next month. So even if they go before those committees, before the commissioner or councilman, and it is not approved, we would still force them to close.
No, it's their land. It's their land.
They're
asking to close without that condition.
That's what I'm clarifying right now.
Yes, sir. So their condition was theirs, and they have decided to waive that condition and proceed with closing regardless of how that.
So we are selling that property to them no matter
what, right?
With the rezoning as it is. It's between them and the city. It's their land.
I
With
just
whatever-
wanted that to be very clear
With whatever
to
issues
everyone
related
involved.
to that land, it would be theirs. Okay.
The current zoning is office institutional, as you've seen in their correspondence. They feel like even if the zoning is not changed, that they could make use of the property and redevelop it to be used within that zone. Any other questions about that?
Next.
You have in your agenda packet major events and updates from myself, workforce development indicators, and the monthly TDA financial report. Regarding the broadband projects update, just this is a reminder, you'll recall we have two great grants that have been approved. The first one was with Brightspeed, and the second one with Infinity Link. Both of those companies are proceeding with building out those project areas. Then we had opportunity to receive funds under the CAB, they're calling it CAB 1.0 program. You'll remember that originally we were designating $1 million of our ARPA funds to provide the match for that. The state, as I've reported to you before, the state came back and said that they had some ARPA funds at the state level that they wanted to use, so we do not have to provide the match for that. The state is providing it. So you'll see in your agenda packet a copy of the agreement revision with the state speaking to that they are covering that match. So also, that's CAB 1.0. That is, and so that was Brightspeed that won that bid, and so Brightspeed is working on finalizing their plans approval for that. Then there's a CAB 2.0 that is currently posted for request for proposals. We're working again with the state Department of IT on that. So the request for proposals is now published. The deadline for that is February 17th. So service providers can respond to that request for proposals. The state will assist us in vetting those applications or those proposals as they did before. The state will also provide the match for that. So then that still leaves us with the $1 million. And you'll recall from the last conversation that we had that we will reserve that for an opportunity for the program that's called Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD. That's to come out sometime this year, but our plan is to still reserve that $1 million. And as you heard Mr. Brewer with Brightspeed, who shared with you at a couple of meetings ago, we believe that with that BEAD program that we can reach 100% coverage in the county. Now, it's going to still take some time to build this out. These programs are rolling out fairly slowly, so that's yet down the road a little bit. But just wanted to give you that update on that. Also, next under my report, I want to note, you'll see that there's information in your packet that the state has changed the deadline requirement or the due date for audits. As you know, currently they are due end of October. But they have, for the last, I'm not sure how many years, they've been extending a grace period through December. And so now what they have done is just basically move that audit requirement date back to that. So that changes the audit requirement date. Of course, we will continue. So the new deadline is December 31st. Any audit received, submitted January 1st or later will be considered late. Also in your agenda packet, you'll see that Trillium gave us notice that they made some changes to their governing board makeup. You'll see that they've moved forward with adding one member of each of the regional boards to serve on the governing board, plus one member of each of the regional consumer family advocacy committees. The remaining 5 voting members are appointed by the governing board. 2 non-voting provider representatives will be appointed by the Providers Council and the DDFA Council, and then 1 non-voting member from the Health Equity Council. This does not change our representation on the governing board. We're still we don't have representation on that.
It means exactly nothing to us. Okay.
Right. They still have the regional advisory
is
board.
just what it says, nothing.
So Ms. Harris serves on that, and you'll recall that you also appointed Ms. Samika Bennerman, who's our DSS attorney, and they both serve on that board. Also, and you've seen these notices before, the state treasurer's office sends out notifications when you have an employee whose salary exceeds $100,000, actually $120,000 or greater, that may trigger what they call the contributions-based benefit cap. It is not simply exceeding that limit, but it's a full calculation that goes in. It takes in consideration the average final compensation of the employee, the age at retirement, the contributions that the employee has made into the retirement system over their tenure in the retirement system. And so depending on all of that, the employee, once they retire, could exceed that maximum amount that the state will pay. And therefore, any person that was hired on or after January 1st, 2015, for those employees hired on or after January 1st, 2015, the employer is not required to pay that additional contribution. Any employee that was hired prior to that, the employer is required to pay the difference between what the state will pay and what the employee is eligible. Any employee that is hired after that, the options are either the county or
Cap what the state gonna pay.
right.
Cap.
Either the county could choose to pay that difference, the employee could pay a contribution to get that, or they just will be capped by that benefit.
It's capped.
It's
I was
capped.
like, what they got to do with us? What's good?
Well, we only have one employee that's in that category.
Okay.
And that's because Mr. Evans has worked for, he was hired before 2015.
That's correct.
So we've only got one employee that's in that salary range, right? Is that right? You say, that's right. That's in that.
And I'm eligible to retire, early retirement.
Right.
But I'm eligible for early retirement. Now, you will have other employees that, once they get eligible to retire.
Right.
That will show up on this list.
If they in this salary range.
If they are in that salary range, yes,
If they
sir.
stay here, right.
You'll also see that we have a copy of notification from the school system.
Right.
It applies to them as well, and there's also a requirement that they make you aware of that of any of their employees that could potentially trigger that.
So those we have to pay. Those that's on that notice, you have to pay. They're required. We require
This is letting you know
that they are eligible for that.
they could potentially trigger that. It's not just
If
because
they
their name is
retire.
up, does not automatically mean they will trigger it.
Okay.
And they call it anti-spiking. I guess what they're trying to get to is that they don't want state or county employees, local government employees to get unreasonably large increases there at the end of their career to pad their retirement. So they have a formula, and what they're looking to see is that it's gradual changes. So though you may have an employee like myself who may be over that limit, based on the formula, when I get to retirement, I may not trigger it. The school system has to make you aware of that they are their retirees, but of course, they get some funding from us, which is why they have to retire. And so you'll see in your agenda packet, their employees that are noted as potentially triggering that provision. So whenever I get these, I get these, I think monthly. I won't necessarily bring them to you I'll bring them to you at least quarterly. If you want to see them monthly, I'm happy to do that. But we are required to make you aware that we receive them. And you've seen these.
Any
before.
questions? Moving on.
The last item, I do want to note a correction, the reminder about Farm City Breakfast, that date should be January 14th, not 19th. But Farm City Breakfast is on January 14th at 7:30. It's a wonderful event. I enjoy going to every year, so certainly love to have you there with us. And that's it for my report.
Anything from commissioners?
I'm surprised that you don't have the listing of the Martin Luther King Jr. activities. Usually it's in our package.
Okay, I've not received the full list of activities, but you want to talk about what activities you're doing?
Good evening. Yes, the Human Relations Commission is sponsoring the breakfast on Monday, the 20th at 8 a.m. at the Carmen Auditorium. The banquet is the Saturday previous to that, which would be the 18th. Yes, that evening at the at Edgecombe Community College.
No, ma'am. It's at the Robert C. Farmer.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes.
On the campus.
No, it's not the college. They've outrun the college. So they don't know that.
And then the lunch with the king, the march after the breakfast, that will be, I believe that will be at the community college.
It's 10 a.m. Starts at St. James Temple Church.
Mhm.
Then we march to the community college. The lunch starts at 11 a.m.
Yes.
And I'll ask about it because usually the county has a table, but if folks don't know when it is, they may not be able to prepare to do it. So I was looking for that.
Sure, and we will have the table at the banquet. If anyone is interested in attending, let me know.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
Mr. Wiggins.
Go right ahead.
Over the past couple of months, I have had numerous calls in regards to our landfill situation that I think comes up repeatedly. And it's basically people attempting to take their trash and dispose of certain items. And the common answer that they get most of the time is the truck is broken down. And Mr. Thorne says we need another driver. I think we need another truck.
And a driver.
And a driver.
We don't have a driver to drive the truck, so.
I mean, and you know, and I know it's not a Gloria issue. I think it's come to a point, it's our issue. I mean, if there's not a truck for somebody to drive to dispose of what we as a community has taken that needs to be disposed of, then we got a problem. And you know, I think it puts undue pressure on those precious people that we have employed a lot. I don't have to tell y'all know that a lot of them are elderly, my age or a little less, and they just don't need the pressure of all the time having to tell somebody that you've got to take this item or these goods somewhere else because the truck is broken down. And I think they're giving probably the correct response that maybe the truck is broken down, but if the truck is being broken down that long, we seriously need another truck. Or trucks with an S on it.
We'll
We just
certainly,
need some help.
Thank you for mentioning that. We'll certainly look at that as well
Thank
as your
you.
recommendation. Mr. Thorne and I have had
Let's
conversations,
make
and
that
his
a,
recommendation is to increase pay.
Let's say within 90 days, whatever the needs are down there, have it corrected.
We'll
If
let you
it's
know what
truck-
the plan is next.
If it's truck and driver, then bring us corrective action on that.
Yes, sir. We'll,
And, excuse me, go ahead, Mr. Matthews, go.
I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to explain what is going on.
I think unless y'all
No,
want some more play.
that's your call.
Okay.
That's your call.
We'll bring you, we'll save it for next time
Okay.
and bring you back a full
Okay.
description of what our plan is.
Okay, that's your,
'Cause our employees are getting talked to ugly and they shouldn't.
well, you know, it's so ugly. Anytime you put in position, you got to tell somebody no. That's in all our offices. So, and and some of it is, you know, that people bringing stuff they don't need to bring, that they got to tell them no about. So, they're gonna be in that position regardless what kind of truck we got, where they're gonna have to say, you can't bring that here.
Do we have large signs?
Or you don't have the
With stipulations of what you can?
We have signs.
and then we have a lot of people in the cities just trying to just take trash to some of our sites, and they don't have the stickers. So, you know, these are people that's got in position on the front line. They're on the front line that's got to tell the public no, and the public taxpayers and they taxpayers in the county, they feel like they got the right to. So
Sure.
it puts them in it does put them in tough positions, but they got to tell them move on.
And as we No, when you tell them to move on, they dump it down the street.
Right, but that's.
It's on a map.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I had one thing, and I may have should have asked our planning director. Princeville Planning Board, I wanted to thank you for helping them, but they have redone their planning board. But the question still remains, the person that we added, that was in outside of the
The
city.
ETJ,
The
yes.
ETJ. I need somebody to get that straightened out.
Well, they're still an appointee. You all have the authority to appoint that person.
Right.
And so that, they're,
Whether they want them or not.
whether they want them or not.
It does not have to be somebody they want. That's our appointee. And since that's in your district, let me say to you, bring us to proposed representative that could serve on that
I
role.
don't have a problem with the one that we appointed.
But then
It's
it's
because somebody on that board has a problem with that person.
well, it's good to have problem, each board members have problems with each other. That's a good problem. That means that they're expressing their differences in the way it ought to be done. Everybody, we didn't get along here tonight.
Well, I told them,
Okay, so-
we did
so-
what you asked us to do.
but we did
Was
what-
to appoint somebody.
That's right.
Now it's your job to work with that person that's been appointed.
That's right.
They don't
And I
have-
believe there's a second ETJ seat. I'll double check that. I
For
believe that there's a
Princeville,
second.
we got 2 seats.
I think so. I'll double check that. But I believe that you have another appointment available in the ETJ.
All right.
Anything else from commissioners?
Just a point of clarification, with the split vote on planning, is there a process to reapply for another, is it, by us making that decision tonight, is it just done? Is there a way that he could come back and, what is the kind of the procedure there?
Sure, and I think that's a reasonable question.
And Mr. Williams is here, maybe
Well-
did you have an unanswered question?
Can I may I approach the board?
Come on, yeah,
I am a friend of this board.
well, the board is a friend of yours regardless of how they voted.
That's exactly
Okay,
right. That's
okay.
exactly right. And I did want to, this is Robert's Rules of Order.
No, this is our order, go ahead, these are our orders, okay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Wiggins, I understand. But anyway, a tie vote means a failure of the motion, not a failure of the subject.
Well,
But anyway,
let me, do you have, our attorney has stated to us what that is, okay?
Correct.
Okay, that's what we accepted, okay? That ain't gonna change for you,
That's right.
okay? Now, you got another question. That tie vote means that it failed.
The motion.
That motion, the rezoning was not approved. The rezoning, it took a majority vote to pass it. That was a tie vote. It failed. And our rules here, what we apply,
That's
when
a
it,
statutory requirement.
that you had, so if we had 5 members and you've got 3,
Yeah.
you would have had a majority of what was present. That's,
I
okay,
understand.
okay.
I will deal with that.
Okay, well,
But then I want to get a favorable vote from the board if we can.
Well,
The rezoning, can we bring it back like?
I think that's the question that's the question that,
I'm trying to get some clarification for you.
we'll get some clarification now.
Yes, sir. There's a reasonable question. I'll consult with staff. We'll look at that to see whether that can submit another application and have another hearing. And hopefully we
There
have
were
an odd number of people.
a lot of questions that were brought up tonight that I think another application, if we ask him to submit it, if that is procedure, that could potentially answer those questions.
I'm not aware of a restriction on applying again, but I want to.
Sometimes it's 6 months, I don't know. Do you know what our ordinance speaks to that in terms of when he can reapply? Do you know what our ordinance speaks to that?
I'll take a look at the ordinance. I think it's a waiting period of a year, but I have to research the ordinance just to be sure of that. As far as like site-specific type questions, so, the county has 2 rezoning tracks. The track tonight was the conventional rezoning, in which you go from, just one district to another without any conditions or anything site-specific. In which I know we had a lot of questions regarding what could be on the site and that sort of thing. The other rezoning track that we have is the conditional rezoning process, in which, with that, a site-specific plan is presented as well as conditions are presented also. And you can have conditions like what land use is, you will limit that conditional district to, and that's.
And that's a different request. That's a different application.
Yes, sir.
That would be a different application that would not require the time frame that you're talking about.
We'll take a look
You
at it.
you all address that and let Mr. Williams know what what can be done, okay, in terms of if an application, but that would have to go, everybody still would have to be notified. All of the people would have to be, it would be a new, because we want to make sure that we do nothing, without the people of the community being aware of that. But, any other questions? Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, at this time, we are scheduled to go into closed session to discuss an economic development matter and a personnel matter. Is there a motion for such?
So moved.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, we will be going into closed session. Well, anytime we got a public hearing with rezoning on it, you can prepare right now.
That's what you
Oh,
get
no,
for
we
coming
were-
early.
We were done right. Now, that's an oversight that's gonna be correct.
You can
I'm
you can
never gonna come early again.
you can prepare the step. If we got these special use permits and these rezoning, you can prepare for,
No, we were done at
I
8.
kinda thought it was gonna be longer.
3-hour tour, it turns out.
we didn't have
Done with
a,
8.
I expected more people, I thought we were gonna have more people speaking.
I thought everybody was gonna speak.
We're back on.
We're now in open session. Is there any business to come in open session?
Nothing else from staff, Mr. Chairman.
Anything from the board? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you again for your tolerance. I'm going to see if this guy, let me call him.
I know, right?
Call him back.